Welcome to the Human Factor. I'm Kimberly Diamond, and today we're talking about real challenges and real wins behind building strong teams. You're watching NowMedia Television.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Human Factor. We're here today with Erika Butler. I'm very excited. We are going to be unpacking some of the aspects of the workplace that I think a lot of businesses are going to be very interested in learning more about how they can maneuver and manage through. So today, Erika Butler, CEO of Hire LLC. Erika brings Fortune 100 HR experience to small and mid-sized businesses. She helps leaders reshape their teams and cultures for lasting success. She's also a certified DISC coach and an intercultural intelligence trainer. That's a mouthful. Two powerful tools for building diverse, high-performing teams. So today, we're going to talk about something that sounds simple, but I feel like it's often missing, and that's the listening factor. I think people feel like they really need to talk more than they listen. So, Erika, welcome to the Human Factor. I'd like to start here with what happens when people do not feel like they're heard. I think the audience sees that the company's very focused on a mission, but they're not really listening. So my first question is, what happens to a company culture when employees don't feel heard or valued?
Sure. Well, some initial signs of that, of course, you'll have likely higher turnover than you would if they were feeling heard. They likely do not trust leadership if they're not feeling heard. They don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like they have connection points. Likely there's more conflict amongst the team, more drama because they don't know what to do with that and they don't feel they can go to anyone about that. So those are just some signs that you'll see when they don't feel heard by their leadership team.
Yes, I totally agree with you, but sometimes they tend to glaze over them or, you know, prioritize other things. So what's some of the signals that your culture isn't working, that there are some challenges and issues there?
Sure. So some signals are your employees are not talking to you, almost like they're avoiding you, even if you ask them, "How are you?" Like they just don't share much information. They don't feel like it's heard. I think sometimes there's a fear of leadership. If the leader's very task focused, results oriented, which they should be, but not
Right.
connected with the team, they're like, "Wow, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing. Like this person could fire me. This person could not promote me." I think leaders many times underestimate the power they have. They're like, it's just me. I'm just a person. But they're the person their employees are talking about at the dinner table many times. So I think helping leaders understand the power they really do have and what a gift it is and how they can influence people. So those are just some signs and why it's so important for leaders to recognize the role they have and how powerful it is.
Exactly. They need to understand that they can easily instill a little bit of fear in their team. So it's
Not
it's
on
good to
purpose, but
not on purpose, but,
it's
but
the
you
role
know, just
itself. Yeah.
unconsciously. Right. Well, how about sharing a story with us where you experienced where just simple listening to the team changed the environment, the culture?
Sure. I mean, there's so many, but the one that really comes to mind is a team that I took over supporting with a large organization, and they were hurting. I was newer in the HR role, and for 2 years, they actually had a hostile work environment. And I'm very careful using those terms. They had real harassment happening, and sadly, it went on for a really long time. And I lingered. I could tell something was wrong. Could tell they were scared to tell me. So I said, "Hey." Like they were like looking at each other. I was reading body cues, and then I said, "I'm here. Come talk to me. I'm going to stay for 20 minutes, 30 minutes." And then several hung back and told me just shocking things that were happening that it was really hard for people to talk about and to admit. So literally that launched an investigation that launched people getting terminated because it was not okay what was happening. And all that I did was linger and listen and ask deeper. So I think just that lingering and pausing and reading body language is a really powerful tool we have as humans that we can lean into.
Yes, you see that very often where people are afraid to, again, speak up, but you can see by their body language that they're either intimidated, concerned, and I think if you can see those cues, you can, like you said, peel back a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper, and earn their trust. So in doing so, then you're actually back to trying to rebuild. So, how can a company start rebuilding um, systems and actually gain that trust back from say such a toxic situation that you're discussing? How do you rebuild that?
Well, from watching your show, I know you talk a lot about this and care a lot about this, so I'm just gonna add on, I guess. But I think creating anonymous, confidential ways for them to give feedback and to be heard is so important because many times, because of that fear, no one's fault. It's just this leader employee, like it does exist. They don't want their name attached to it. So once you put that little box up for employees to share, or you have a focus group with only HR that is, promised to be confidential, and it must be, and we share the feedback as a group, right? They feel a lot more able to share honestly and openly and vulnerably without any retaliation or risk for their career, if that makes sense. And I find that there's so much I could tell you, but that's like the number one thing. If you do that, you'll hear a lot more from the team.
And yeah, and what about surveys? Like, what is your thought around surveys providing anonymous feedback, right?
I'm a
So,
huge
like,
fan, even after
yeah, people get
focus groups.
afraid. They're like, my name's going to be on it. How are they going to know?
No.
And I'm like, no.
Hire a third party where it's like the leaders see nothing, no names. I've been part of groups where there was a policy, anyone with 5 employees or less didn't get results, but they got group results so that they couldn't look at comments and pick and choose. So if they have 5 or more,
Oh,
it's like even policies like that in place help people feel like they can share truly, honestly, with no names attached. I'm a huge fan. I think every organization should do that.
that's a great idea. I didn't think about it being a smaller group
Mm.
and a person potentially being able to identify the person's responses,
Yeah.
right? So that makes a lot of sense. So that's a very good point, and that's good information. So moving on to what's a small step a leader can to take today to improve how they listen? Is there training that goes with that, or is it just do you just have some specific tips that you could share?
This is such a small, simple step, but I've seen so many leaders not do it. And the leaders that do it build amazing relationships with their team. Walk the floor. If you don't walk the floor every day, walk it every week. For remote teams, that might be a huddle meeting and truly, how are you? And I think just making time in your schedule, even if you have to put it on the calendar to talk to each team member, how was Bobby's soccer game? Little things like that open the door for team to share, feel like there's a real
Mhm.
connection, feel like they actually will get caught if they do share how they're feeling, if it's good, bad, whatever it is. So that's so simple. And there's so much more I could say, but that simple step is going to open up conversation that you wouldn't have otherwise.
And I used to, and I'm sure you've seen this and done this as well. When I was in a leadership position like that, I would always want to get together in the morning and gauge the pulse of the team. Obviously it depends on the size of the team, okay? But in my case, I had whatever 7 recruiters. I wanted to just for a couple of minutes in the morning do a little recap, and I think at that point I could kind of gauge where people were feeling that day, if there was any, you know what I mean, if they were feeling a little stressed or they had something on their mind. And I thought that just kind of opens it up to that, open forum. Let's get the day going. Let's start this off on a good foot, and take on anything. So I think that's so you start your day listening instead of just jumping right into the have to do's type of thing. So yeah, wonderful,
Love it.
wonderful.
Absolutely.
Anything you have to add, feel free. But that's just something that I did as a leader. Yeah,
The
thought
only
was
piece I'll add, which is I think really powerful, life-changing even, is doing a 360-degree feedback survey. Every leader should have that opportunity all around you to get that feedback, and no names are on it, but you just learn so much, and you write yourself as well and see it. Where am I aligned on my strengths? Where am I not? And it just is such valuable information you can use to keep growing as a leader.
yes, and you're right. It's not just about the feedback, it is about evaluating and looking at what you're doing and making any potential adjustments and then maybe figuring out how to really address it very personally without giving it away, right? Like, I know I've obviously been missing the mark and I'm going to do this, not so blatant, you know what I mean? But, uh, well, this has been wonderful information. This is, I always enjoy speaking with you. We have a lot of things that we could deep dive into, but we have to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with a continued conversation here with Erika Butler. So stay with us. And also,
We'll be right back with more stories, insights, and real world strategies for leading with purpose. This is The Human Factor on Now Media Television.